So following Spies Around was not unusual to me, but what was unusual was what happened very early one Sunday morning on a cold day in December a number of years ago when my wife and I were newlyweds. We'd been married just over 2 months, and I got a call. Woke me up pretty early on that Sunday morning. It was maybe like 8. Now, I haven't slept in until 8 o'clock for a very long time because now we have 3 children. But back then we didn't have kids and we could sleep in as long as we wanted. So here I am, I wake up, groggily grab the phone off the side of the bedstand, and it's my boss, Supervisory Special Agent Gene McClellan. And he says, "Eric, are you awake?" And I said, "I am now." And he said, "I need to speak with you." Now that wasn't unusual. In what I did as a super secret FBI undercover asset, I had to work 24/7. There weren't days off. There were only days where my targets weren't moving. And so it wasn't unusual to be called into work on a day that I didn't think I had to. And so I said, "Okay, Gene, I'll get dressed and I'll come downtown to the field office and we can chat." And he said, "Get dressed, but you don't have to come downtown. I'm parked right outside." And so I looked at Juliana, didn't say anything, tried to put a stoic look on my face. And I said, "Okay, Gene, I'll be right outside." So I walk outside and I look, and there's Gene McClellan sitting in his car with a smile on his face, just looking at me. So I got in the car, I stared at him and I said, "Gene, what is this about?" And he said words I've never forgotten in my life. He said, "Have you ever heard of a guy named Robert Hanssen?" I hadn't, which was good for them, and I guess in the end of all of this for me. I said, "No, I haven't. I've never worked Hansen. I don't know who he is." And he said, "That's good that you haven't worked Hansen, because we want you to catch him." And this started one of the pivotal points of my life. The one moment in my life that I know my entire life changes. And we all have those moments throughout our lives. Those seconds we can look back where we had a decision. And looking back, of course, you know that was the pivotal moment where your entire life changed. And this was my first. And I looked back at him and I said, "Why don't you explain what you mean? Because you've come to my house, my little apartment in the morning, woke me up, scared me. My wife has to be worried inside, wondering what's going on, just to tell me to do my job? You want me to go follow a spy?" He said, "I don't think you understand, Eric. We don't want you to ghost him. We want you to work in an office with him that we're setting up at FBI headquarters. And we want you to catch him because we think he's a spy, the notorious spy, gray suit, that we have been after for over 22 years. And we want you to work with him and catch him." Probably the most pivotal story in the case, and probably everyone's favorite, although certainly not my favorite because it's still the one that gives me a little bit of post-traumatic stress chills, but probably my best story. So I'm going to tell you how we caught Robert Hanssen. There was a lot of pressure on me to find information that would lead us to find a way to catch Robert Hanssen. And I was having a lot of trouble because the fact is the guy was a master spy. And most of my book is about that psychology between two people trying to get him to give me information that would lead us to catch him without him knowing that I was the person trying to catch him. He had to feel comfortable and safe, and that I was just a guy working for him in the information assurance section, not an undercover asset with the covert job to surveil him, investigate him, and ultimately find the information that would lead to his arrest and conviction. See, here's the thing about bad guys, though, something that I learned very early in my career. They have routines, things they do to protect information, things they do to protect things like their most important devices. And Hansen had a Palm Pilot, and he kept it in his left back pocket. And every time he sat down, this thing was so thick, he would have to pull it out of his pocket and put it in his bag. And when he stood up, he'd put it right back in his back pocket, like clockwork, a routine. So I asked him about the thing. And he looked at me and he said, "You wouldn't understand about these things. Only executives, people who are on the up and go, people who are efficient and effective, those government terms, have something like a Palm Pilot. And you're nothing but a do-good, know-nothing, worthless clerk, so you don't have a device like this." So I went to the Office of Science and Technology in the FBI, because we ostensibly worked for that division. And I asked the chief scientist, "Sir, I would like a Palm Pilot." He said, "Really?" I said, "In fact, I'd like two. I'd like to get one for my boss because the Palm 3s are out and, can't hurt to ingratiate myself with him." And he said, "Who's your boss?" And I said, "Robert Hanssen." He said, "Oh, okay. You're going to need something to make yourself ingratiated with that guy." And so I popped into the office, gave him his Palm Pilot. I was all excited. I said, "Hey, boss, that's a Palm 5. It's a lot faster than yours and it's slimmer. You're not going to hurt yourself if you sit down on it. And you know what? You can even play games." And he shook his head, pushed it back across the desk to me, pulled out his baby and said, "I'll keep mine. I've written the encryption on this myself. These idiots at the FBI can never crack it on their best day." That was a pretty big boast. "So I'll take mine. You can take that one back." That, ladies and gentlemen, is a clue. So we had to get it away from him. Here is how we did it. You see, in the movies, I might have walked past him, right? And bump and shove and pull it out of his back pocket, and he doesn't know. But the problem is if he sits down, it gets game over, or touches his back pocket, or needs to check a contact or an email. So we had to get him away with it for sufficient time to get it away, get it copied, and get it back before it knew it was gone. So we used everything I learned about Robert Hanssen in the case. I came up with this idea, and it was a good one. Now, we tried a few before that, and this is the one that finally worked. Waited till we were sitting down in the office, and an assistant director that we'd read into the case comes in unannounced. And he storms into our office, and he slams $20 right down on the desk in front of Hansen. And he says, "You and me, the shooting range right now, and I bet you that 20, 5 targets out of 5, I'm going to beat you." And Hansen's upset because he doesn't like this guy at all. In fact, he'd asked me to go to this assistant director's office and steal the art off of the walls of his conference room. The art was hanging in our office. He must have seen this, right? 2, he doesn't like authority. 3, he doesn't like to be challenged. But 4, he really, really, really likes to shoot. So he grumbles to his feet. He grabs his eye protection, ear protection. He holsters his firearm. He stumbles out after the guy down to the shooting range. And I waited until I got a text that said, "In range shooting." And so I grabbed the Palm Pilot. And while I was at it, I grabbed a floppy disk and a data card. All that has data, right? Spies hide things in data. I ran down 3 flights of steps. I got to where a tech team had been sitting bored for weeks. I handed the devices. They hooked them up to computer systems, analyzed them, said, "It's all encrypted." I said, "Does that matter?" He said, "No, we're going to copy it and we'll crack that encryption later." I said, "You can do that?" And he smiled at me and he said, "We're the FBI. I feel pretty good about myself." I said, "Yeah, we are." And finally, they give it to me and say, "Run." And I ran up all 3 flights of steps as fast as I could, slammed my way into our office, closed the big first door, which is what saved me, ran into his office, kneeled down in front of his bag, and I realized 3 devices, 4 pockets, and I had no clue. I had no idea which device went in what pocket. The only thing I could possibly remember is that the floppy disk was next to the Palm Pilot and the data card was in a different pocket, but it became like the worst algebra equation. Made my best guess, zipped up all 4 pockets and ran to my desk, put the best poker face right here. And I thought to myself, why am I still sitting here? Shouldn't I be running down the office? I mean, if this is what I think it is, if the information that we believe is on this Palm Pilot is there, then I'm dead. I mean, game's over. We might have him. So why shouldn't he just shoot me? But then I thought, if I don't sit here and he comes out of his office and I'm not here, with a smile on my face, he's going to know that the case is over. He might run. We might not catch him. So I sat there on my desk and I put the best poker face I literally have. And I just can't play poker anymore because I used all my luck up at that moment. And he came out, he leaned over my desk and he glared at me and he said, "Were you in my office?" Just held his stare. I looked at him for a while and then I just went like this. Yeah, I was in your office. First of all, two of us were in there talking. Then you left to go shoot, which you win, by the way. And then, well, I put a memo in there. Didn't you see it? Yeah. He looks at me, and he looks at me. He says, I never want you in my office again. Leaves for the day. And I finally could breathe. About 5 days later, he's on that bridge in Foxstone Park, and he's feeling really good about himself because he has just loaded his final drop to the Russians of secrets that he has been collecting for the past 5 years, including all of the information that he stole while he was working in the information assurance section. Wasn't really working. The only job he really did was stealing secrets. And he retraces his footsteps along an old, well-used path through the center of the park to where he's parked his car right on the street. This place is only a stone's throw from his house. He could have almost walked from there. He gets to his car. He pulls his keys out of his pocket. He goes to put them in the door. SWAT vans screech to a halt, hemming him in. Panel doors open, and FBI agents step out with guns. They point them at him. He says, put your hands up. Drop the keys. He does, and he says, the guns are not necessary. Then he looks at them and he says, what took you so long? And he's arrested for espionage against the United States, a number of different counts. He ends up pleading guilty, and he'll spend the rest of his days in Supermax prison, Florence, Colorado. We were able to catch him because when we decrypted the Palm Pilot, we not only knew where he would make that last drop, but the exact date and time that he would make the last drop. And he was caught red-handed, passing secrets in a known drop site to a foreign power. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you catch a spy. The unfortunate thing about undercover work, and I've learned a lot about undercover work. I actually speak to a lot of people who do undercover work in the police force and in different agencies about this to help them. One of the problems is that when you are working undercover, you must be undercover. The case is more important than anything. Your career relies on it. Your colleagues all rely on it. There are usually countless amounts of money spent on the undercover case. And so that matters more than anything else. And unfortunately, that case subsumes your life. And you can't show those negative feelings when you're at work. So you tend to do it when you're at home and you feel safe. And unfortunately, many people who are under that massive amount of stress will take that out on the people that they love, not planning to and not knowingly. So I wasn't the nicest person. I tried my best, but I was just never the happy person that she married. I was always stressed and down and tired. I maybe slept 4 hours a night during this case. If I was lucky, I would get done working with Hansen. I would go to law school for 2 hours, sometimes more depending on the day. And then I would head home, tuck my wife into bed. We didn't really have a lot of time to see each other because usually law school is done around like 10-ish. And then I would have to get up after she was asleep, and I knew she was asleep, so I'd count her breaths. I'd pull out a secret laptop I had hidden in the apartment. I would type up my surveillance notes for the day, save them on a floppy disk to hand to my handler the next morning, and then I could finally get to sleep. And by then, there wasn't much sleep left to have. Well, without getting too political, because the one thing I try to do is stay nonpartisan and not get pulled into politics too much. But what I will say is there really are two FBIs. There's really, in every agency, and especially in law enforcement, there are the people that do the work, and they do it very well. When the FBI has a case, when the FBI has their teeth in a case, they're incredible at seeing it through. There is no better investigative force on earth. That might have actually gotten them in a little bit of trouble in the dogged way they pursued the investigation you're talking about. You're talking about Carter Page and that sort of thing. The problem is when the FBI engages in politics. They should never engage in politics because politics is bias. There is no way to have any thought or side in politics without bringing your own bias into it, because politics is all about bias. It's about your values and beliefs and imputing those values on how you want the direction of the country to go. The FBI is not supposed to do that. The FBI's job is to investigate facts, only facts. If you go into an investigation, it's something they had to train, and the best investigators know that you have to go in a clean slate, because if you go into an investigation believing that your target is a criminal, you will find a way to make them a criminal. And you will taint the investigation. Yeah. I think that the FBI has lost its way a few times in allowing itself to engage in politics. It needs to be apolitical. And I really think that to be the shining example that it needs to be, they need to just investigate the facts. Yes, to my agents and my editor's chagrin, who both really like to rep fiction, nonfiction. My next book that I'm actually in editing mode right now is a fiction book. It's still spy genre. It's a mystery, a modern day spy story, and the Russians are involved again. I think it's a lot of fun. I think that if you liked Red Sparrow, then you probably like this. I tried twice to talk to Robert Hanssen. The first time was after he was arrested, but before he pled guilty, I asked if I could meet with him and talk to him. The FBI debated it for a while. I was, after all, the guy who caught him. But at the end of the day, they told me no, because they felt like they were getting some movement in the case, and they were afraid that if he learned that I was the one who caught him, I was the one who betrayed him, then this was their words, not mine. He will rattle the bars of his cage and get so angry, he'll lawyer up, and he will never work with us. So they declined. The second time that I tried to find a way to meet with him, which was actually more complicated, now that he is locked away in Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado, which is one of the worst prisons on earth. I wanted the last chapter of my book to be a conversation with Hansen. And I was going to ask him, why did you do it? Just to definitively, I think I'd know, but to definitively get it down. And I thought he would answer me. He's never answered it for anyone else. But I just couldn't get to him. I couldn't find a way through the FBI. I tried calling his attorney. And the one thing that I didn't want to do out of respect is to ask his family, because I that's a line I've never crossed. And so I wasn't able to. The last conversation I had with Robert Hanssen was before his arrest, way back when. I was at my desk and he was getting ready to leave, and he turned, he looked at me and he said, well, you have a good break, Eric. I'll see you on Tuesday. I knew he was either going to get arrested on that Sunday, or they were going to let him make the drop, try to catch the intelligence officer when he picked up the drop, and not arrest Hansen until Tuesday. But it had leaked to the media, and so they had to make that arrest. They had embargoed the story, but they weren't going to wait too long. And so I was afraid they would arrest him on Sunday, and this would be the last interaction we had. So I did the craziest thing that I've done in the case. He stops and he looks at me and he said, oh, well, you have a good long weekend. And as he's leaving, I said, hey, boss. And he stops and he turns, he looks at me, one hand holding the door open. And I don't know why I said this, but I looked at him, I said, I'll catch you later. And he kind of stopped and looked at me and he goes, well, okay, Eric. And he leaves for the day. And I just put my head down on my desk and I thought to myself, why did I say that? Have I just ruined the case? Is he going to go to sleep tonight and think, why would Eric say that? What did he mean? Catch you later. That's odd. I'm not going to go through with the drop. And I was like, I hope that no one ever finds out I said that, because if he doesn't go through the drop, I don't want it to be on me. But he did. And so I have a great story, because those are the last words I said to Robert Hanssen.